What's going on, guys? It's your boy Billy Chuck coming at you with episode 23. In this episode, we're going to dive into the career of Mr. Ozzy Osbourne, the man who started it all. But Ozzy providing, of course, lead vocals from Black Sabbath. And Black Sabbath released their self-titled debut album in 1970, Never Say Die, he released their first album with Black Sabbath in, looks like 1969, and the band was highly influential on the development of heavy metal music, and particularly their critically acclaimed releases Paranoid, Master of Reality, and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Ozzy was fired in Black Sabbath in '79 due to alcohol and drug problems. Go figure. He then began a successful solo career with Blizzard of Oz in 1980 and has released 13 studio albums, the first 7 of which received multi-platinum certifications in the United States. He has since reunited with Black Sabbath on several occasions. He rejoined in '97 and helped record the group's final studio album. It was called 13, before they embarked on a farewell tour. Let me tell you about Black Sabbath and their farewell tours. I was at Ozfest for one of their farewell tours, right? From what I remember, I was passed out, tripping on acid, tripping on mushrooms, everything else. I was passed out or laying on my back in the back seat of a Chevy S10, using a Coors Light case as a pillow, staring up at the sky, listening to Crazy Train. So that was my experience with that. But his longevity and success has earned him the informal title of Godfather of Metal. But Ozzy was born at a maternity hospital in Marston Green on December 3rd, 1948, and grew up in the Aston area of Birmingham. His mother, Lillian, who worked at a Lucas factory. Anybody knows what a Lucas factory is, leave it in the comments. His father, John Thomas Jack Osbourne, worked night shift as a toolmaker at the General Electric Company. Ozzy has 3 older sisters named Jean, Iris, and Gillian. The 2 brothers named Paul and Tony. The family lived in a small 2-bedroom home at 14 Lodge Road in Aston. Ozzy gained the nickname Ozzy as a child. He dealt with dyslexia at school. In case any of you dumb fucks don't know what dyslexia is, that means you read shit backwards, I believe. His accent has been described as described as a hesitant Brummy. At the age of 11, he suffered sexual abuse from school bullies. He claims to have attempted suicide multiple times as a teenager. Ozzy left school at the age of 15 and was employed at a construction site. He trained as a plumber. He was an apprentice toolmaker, car factory horn tuner, and slaughterhouse worker. He dabbled in crime as a youngster and was convicted of robbing a clothes shop but was unable to pay the fine. His father also refused to pay it in order to teach him a lesson, resulting in Ozzy spending 6 weeks in Winson Green prison. He looks like somebody who did some time in his day. He participated in school plays, including Gilbert and Sullivan's The Mikado and HMS Pinafore. Upon hearing the first single of the Beatles at age 14, he became a fan and has credited the 63 song by the Beatles called She Loves You with inspiring Ozzy to become a musician. In 2011, he released a documentary, God Bless Ozzy Osbourne. He said that the Beatles made him realize that he was going to be a rock star for the rest of his life. Now, it says here, at about this time, Ozzy met his future wife, Sharon Arden, after the unexpected success of their first album. Black Sabbath were considering her father, Don Arden, as their new manager, and Sharon at that time working as Don's receptionist. Ozzy admits he was attracted to her immediately, but assumed that she probably thought I was a lunatic. She was right. But Ozzy later recalled that the best thing about eventually choosing Dawn as manager was that he finally got to see Sharon on a regular basis, though their relationship was strictly professional at that point. Blaze one for the nation. Any user. In 1973, Sabbath released the critically acclaimed Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. For the first time, the band received favorable reviews in the mainstream. Gordon Fletcher of Rolling Stone called the album an extraordinary, gripping affair and nothing less than a complete success. Decades later, Eduardo Rodavia called the album a masterpiece essential to any heavy metal collection. That I can get on board with. If you like heavy metal, you got to own that album. While also claiming the band displayed a newfound sense of finesse and maturity. I don't know about all that. I don't know how bands mature per se. I don't give a fuck how they just paint the picture in my head, bro. That's all. If you paint the picture in my head with your music. But the album marked the band's 5th consecutive platinum selling album in the U.S. Sabotage was released in 1975. Again, there were favorable reviews. Rolling Stone stated that Sabotage is not only Sabbath's best record since Paranoid and might be their best ever. So, AllMusic was less favorable, noting that the magical chemistry that made up albums as Paranoid and Volume 4 so special was beginning to disintegrate. Blow it up your ass there, AllMusic. Technical Ecstasy was released on September 25th, 1976. I was born on September 25th, but not till 83. Also met with mixed reviews that album got. AllMusic gave the album 2 stars and notes that the band was unraveling at an alarming rate. Unraveling. What does that mean? Like the band's having problems or something? Why y'all gotta use fucking words that I gotta Google and shit? Like, for real. Like, just say the band was having problems at that time. We all would get it. You got to blaze one for the... blaze one for the nation. But just 5 months after the release of Paranoid, Black Sabbath released Master of Reality. The band reached the top 10 in the US and UK. Was certified gold in less than 2 months. In the 80s, it received platinum certification and went double platinum in the early 21st century. Reviews of the album were unfavorable. Lester Bangs of Rolling Stone famously dismissed Master of Reality as, get this dude should be hung up by his fucking toenails. But he described that album as being naive, simplistic, repetitive, absolute doggerel. Although the very same magazine would later place the album at 298 on the 500 greatest albums of all time, compiled in 2003. But in 1978, Ozzy left Sabbath for 3 months to pursue a solo project called The Blizzard of Oz, and it was a title which had been suggested by his father. 3 members of the band Necromandus, who had supported Sabbath in Birmingham when they were called Earth, backed Ozzy in the studio and briefly became the first incarnation of the band. And at the request of other band members, Ozzy rejoined Black Sabbath. The band spent 5 months at Sounds Interchange Studios in Toronto, where they wrote and recorded their next album, Never Say Die. It took quite a long time, Tony Iommi said. We were getting really drugged out, doing a lot of dope. We're going down to the sessions and have to pack up because we were too stoned. We'd have to stop. Nobody could get anything right. We were all over the place. Everyone playing a different thing. We'd go back and sleep it off and try again the next day. I mean, I concur. I mean, I personally can get on board with that because I personally have been too fucked up to fucking record. Touche, Mr. Tony Iommi. But in May of 78, Black Sabbath began touring in support of Never Say Die with Van Halen as an opening act. People called Sabbath's performance tired and uninspired, in stark contrast to the youthful performance of Van Halen, who were touring for the world for the first time. Ain't bad, Van Halen. I mean, tour the world for the first time, and you're opening for Black Sabbath. Ain't bad. The band recorded their concert at Hammersmith Odeon in June of 78, which was released on video as Never Say Die. The final show of the tour and Ozzy's last appearance with Black Sabbath for another 7 years until 85 in Albuquerque, New Mexico on December 11th. So, there you go. But in 1978, Ozzy left Sabbath for 3 months to pursue a solo project called The Blizzard of Oz, and it was a title which had been suggested by his father. 3 members of the band Necromandus, who had supported Sabbath in Birmingham when they were called Earth, backed Ozzy in the studio and briefly became the first incarnation of the band. And at the request of other band members, Ozzy rejoined Black Sabbath. The band spent 5 months at Sounds Interchange Studios in Toronto, where they wrote and recorded their next album, Never Say Die. It took quite a long time, Tony Iommi said. We were getting really drugged out, doing a lot of dope. We're going down to the sessions and have to pack up because we were too stoned. We'd have to stop. Nobody could get anything right. We were all over the place. Everyone playing a different thing. We'd go back and sleep it off and try again the next day. I mean, I concur. I mean, I personally can get on board with that because I personally have been too fucked up to fucking record. Touche, Mr. Tony Iommi. But in May of '78, Black Sabbath began touring in support of Never Say Die with Van Halen as an opening act. People called Sabbath's performance tired and uninspired, in stark contrast to the youthful performance of Van Halen, who were touring for the world for the first time. Ain't bad, Van Halen. I mean, tour the world for the first time, and you're opening for Black Sabbath. Ain't bad. The band recorded their concert at Hammersmith Odeon in June of '78, which was released on video as Never Say Die. The final show of the tour and Ozzy's last appearance with Black Sabbath for another 7 years until '85 in Albuquerque, New Mexico on December 11th. So, there you go. And I was just reading something, guys. Listen to this. After leaving Black Sabbath, Ozzy said that he got $96,000 for the share of the name, so he just locked himself away and spent 3 months doing cocaine and booze. His thinking was, this is my last party because after this I'm going back to Birmingham and the Dole. Whatever that means. However, Don Arden, which is Sharon's dad, signed him to Jet Records with the aim of recording new material. He dispatched his daughter Sharon to Los Angeles to look after Ozzy's needs, whatever they were, to protect his investment. Arden initially hoped Ozzy would return to Black Sabbath, who he was personally managing at that time, and later attempted to convince the singer to name his new band Son of Sabbath, which Osbourne hated that name. Sharon attempted to convince Ozzy to form a supergroup with guitarist Gary Moore. When Ozzy lived in Los Angeles, Moore's band G-Force helped him to audition musicians. If drummers were trying out, he played guitar. If a bassist came along, his drummer would help out. We felt sorry for him, basically. He was always hovering around trying to get me to join, and he wasn't having any of it. But Ozzy's second solo album, Diary of a Madman, featured more songs co-written with Lee Kerslake for his work on this album. In Blizzard of Oz, Randy Rhoads was ranked the 85th greatest guitarist of all time by Rolling Stone magazine in '03. The album is known for the singles Over the Mountain and Flying High Again. As Ozzy explains in his autobiography, is his personal favorite. Wow. Tommy Aldridge and Rudy Sarzo soon replaced Kerslake and Daisley. Aldridge had been Ozzy's original choice for a drummer, but a commitment to Gary Moore made him unavailable, it says. So, I guess when you're committed, then that's it. But Sarzo had played in Quiet Riot with Randy Rhoads, who recommended him for the position. On March 19th, 1982, the band was in Florida for its Diary of a Madman tour and a week away from playing Madison Square Garden in New York City. A light aircraft piloted by Andrew Aycock, the band's tour bus driver, carrying Randy Rhoads and Rachel Youngblood, the band's costume and makeup designer. I've always liked that last name, Youngblood, but the plane crashed while performing low passes over the band's tour bus. The left wing of the aircraft clipped the bus, causing the plane to graze a tree and crash into the garage of a nearby mansion, killing Randy Rhoads, Aycock, and Youngblood. My condolences, bro. The crash was ruled the result of poor judgment by the pilot in buzzing the bus and misjudging clearance of obstacles. Experiencing firsthand the horrific death of his friend and bandmate, Ozzy fell into a deep depression. The tour was canceled for 2 weeks while Ozzy, Sharon, and Aldrin returned to LA to take stock while Sarzo remained in Florida with his family. So, damn, bro. Like, real. Like, 3 people that's on your tour that you see every day. Gone. Fucking gone. Wow. But Gary Moore was the first to be approached to replace Randy Rhoads, but he refused with a 2-week deadline to find a new guitarist and resume the tour. Robert Sarzo, brother of the band's bassist Rudy Sarzo, was chosen to replace Randy Rhoads. Former Gillan guitarist Bernie Torm, however, flew to California from England with a promise from Jet Records that he had the job. So, I mean, when you're like Ozzy Osbourne status, you don't go like, oh, I can't find nobody to play. They come to you. So, once Sharon had realized that Jet Records had already paid Torm in advance, he reluctantly hired instead of Sarzo. He was reluctantly hired instead of Sarzo. The tour resumed on April 1st of 82, but his blues-based style was unpopular with fans. And after a handful of shows, he informed Sharon that he would be returning to England to return work on a solo album he had begun before coming to America. And at an audition in a hotel room, Ozzy selected Night Ranger's Brad Gillis to finish the tour. The tour culminated in the release of the 82 live album Speak of the Devil, recorded at the Ritz in New York City. A live tribute album for Randy Rhoads was also released. I remember that. I mean, I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I mean, I don't remember when it originally was released, but I had the album in my hand. I don't own it, but I had it in my hand, and I was listening to it. But anyway, Ozzy moved on after Randy Rhoads' death. Speak of the Devil, known in the United Kingdom as Talk of the Devil, was originally planned to consist of live recordings from 81, primarily from Osbourne's solo work. But under contract to produce a live album, it ended up consisting entirely of Sabbath covers recorded with Gillis, Sarzo, and Tommy Aldridge. In 82, Ozzy appeared as lead vocalist on the pop dance track Shake Your Head, Let's Go to Bed, remixed and released in the early 90s for Was or Not Was hits album in Europe, and it reached number 4 on the UK singles chart. In 83, Jake E. Lee, formerly of Rat and Rough Cut, joined Ozzy to record Bark at the Moon. The album, co-written with Daisley, featured Aldridge and former Rainbow keyboard player Don Airey. The album contains the fan favorite Bark at the Moon. The music video for Bark at the Moon was partially filmed at the Holloway Sanatorium outside London, England, and within weeks the album became certified gold. It has had 3 million copies sold in the US. So, wow. 86's The Ultimate Sin, followed with bassist Phil Susan, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, and Randy Castillo, and touring behind both albums with former Uriah Heep keyboardist John Sinclair, joining prior to the Ultimate Sin tour. At the time of its release, The Ultimate Sin was Ozzy's highest charting. You know, I have to get right. But anyways, did you guys know that Blizzard of Oz is one of the few albums amongst the 100 bestsellers of the 80s to have achieved multi-platinum status without the benefit of a top 40 single? As of August 97, it had achieved quadruple platinum status. I envy Ozzy's career. Said Billboard, which is the old drummer for Black Sabbath. If you guys are following along, it seemed to be coming around from whatever it was that he'd go through, and he seemed to be on his way again, making records and stuff. And as always, guys, if you like what you've seen, like what you heard, and if you like spending time with your boy Billy Chuck, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know what you think. Leave me some comments.
Up into the black sky so veils, burn the metal through the atmosphere. Rather made to worry, hate and fear, with the hateful battles raging on. Rocket flying through the glowing sun, through the embrace of eternal void. Freedom from the final suicide. Make a home and love is